In this episode, you get a breakdown of the quote, "Physicians heal themselves." Welcome to Energy Alignment for Entrepreneurs, the podcast helping entrepreneurs to be free from anxiety, stress, and tension through balancing emotions and consciousness expansion. Here's 3 things that you'll discover today. Number 1, how wounded healers create wounded followers. Number 2, why you can't give what you don't have. And number 3, what to do when you realize you've been teaching from your trauma. Wow. So, the quote, to heal yourself, to be your own doctor. This is what we're moving into as a connected, aware, next level society. And what I mean when I say that is that you can depend on others in some form, but that dependence cannot be your cornerstone. Whereas you may have certain specialties or inclinations, and someone else of a specific caliber with their knowledge, they can assist you. But in the big grand picture, no one can be a better doctor for yourself than you. Meaning that you tap into your intuitive awareness, which then allows for you to get ahead of your problems before they start, for you to have a form of preventative health care for your being, for your vessel. The bottom line is, right, we all are going to die. I don't say that in a pessimistic light, it's just a fact. So, how about we get on with enjoying the time that we have on this planet? And one of the cornerstones to that is being healthy, right? I'm not saying you won't age. I'm not saying things of natural progression won't occur. But can you learn to not resist the inevitable? And can you also learn to optimize for the inevitable, right? A big one, and for me too. I'm 26 right now. I have thick hair and I take care of my body, the 10 to 12% body fat. Is my entire life solely focused on the attachment to how my body looks? I take care of the vessel. I use training because it is so helpful for consciousness. And the byproduct of having consistency in certain disciplines and foundations is that I have a certain physique or stature. But if every day I was obsessed with maintaining and how do I put it? Because part of it is that my actions would emanate into a form of love for the body. This is where the perspective, it matters where you're standing. What you're standing affects what you're looking at, right? So you could take someone who looks exactly like me, and if they have a root of scarcity where there's a fear around their vessel changing and aging and testosterone, like all of that is not what I'm obsessed with. I just understand, hey, when I work out, I feel better. Now, I had to give you that example and the nuance because you need to be your own doctor. But if you're obsessed over what you can't hold on to, then there's a problem. So it's kind of this simultaneous jumping into the water, but then you do have to move your body to swim, right? You, if you're obsessed with not drowning, you're probably not going to learn how to swim. You have to let go of the fear, the attachment to actually learn how to move freely. And that's the main point. That's hitting the nail on the head. That's what we're talking about. So when you have wounded, quote unquote, healers creating wounded followers, right? Point number one, that is this, go bring it back to the Bible. You need to remove the speck in your eye before you can help another remove the speck in their eye. You can't run away from who you are. So if you notice a specific pattern, frequently wounds come in the form of patterns, right? They show themselves throughout your days, throughout your weeks and months. You'll have, see, this is where humans get confused. They think that a pattern in a different circumstance, situation, or different person is new, but it's not new. It is a repeated pattern that you need to learn to observe first because you cannot change anything that you're first not aware can change. So then you bring yourself to the perspective of, oh, there's actually a possibility for me or this thing to change, right? That's the problem with the victim mentality is you get rid of all space for change. And if there's no space for change, in the one of the universal laws of creation is that the only constant is change, you are literally fighting God himself or herself. You are fighting the creation, that form of intelligence which put this entire planet into rotation and created every single human on this planet. So, to simplify this, one of the biggest winning decisions or lifestyle changes you can make is to start to learn and pay attention to the laws which are unwritten. Compounding is one of those laws, and uh, understanding energy is part of those laws too. Whereas if you are speaking consistently from a place of not having, that is scarcity. You, in the Bible, what does it say? The Bible says, more will be given to those who already have much. What does that mean? It means if you are abundant, more will come to you because that rate, we in our core are not a human doing nor having. We are energetic vibrational beings. So when you are moving and operating from the place and energy of abundance, that's where that Bible quote comes in, that more will be given to those who have or already have, and all will be taken from those who have nothing. Because if you consistently are operating from scarcity, that is the energetic vibration that you are emanating. And whether you want to admit it or not, when you throw a rock into water, the water ripples. Same thing goes for your thinking, your actions, and your energy. That is the practicality or the practical link to the law of compounding. Your thoughts and your actions consistently compound. If I were to eat McDonald's for 5 years straight, my cells in my vessel, in my temple, would be adjusting to that. Now, also in the Bible, they say that what you ingest will not be your end. That is verbatim, but the essence is that no matter what you ingest, you can still be pure. So the McDonald's example likely is the type of um, tragic journey to rock bottom where you find yourself being obese or very immobile, where you want to go play with the kids or your grandkids or something like that, but you can't, right? And that is a outcome of your own choices. So then you have to sit with the seeds which you have sown and be honest about, um, right? What have I created? Now, when we tie this all back to point number one, how wounded healers create wounded followers, it is because the moment that you even attach to a label of being a healer, you are getting into sketchy territory or you are walking on thin ice, if you will. That is a dangerous thing to have adopted a label of being a healer. And this is where it's very funny, right? Because in practical life, for example, I'm learning hardscaping and excavating, and sure, you could label me a operator. Well, if my whole life is just my work, there is a problem. Uh-huh. If my whole life is just being the podcast guy who is speaking to you with this message, there is a problem. But if I can see it all from the bird's eye perspective, the awareness that I am much greater than this identity whose name is Justin Matthew Igliscus, that awareness can be the intuition which shows me, oh, this is what needs to change. This is how I actually be my own doctor, is by connecting to the stillness, the space, the heart, the spirit. And that calls for um, you to be aware of your own attachments, right? Attachments come in the label of words. And then you start to think about words and your identity, your sense of self in relationship to that label. Yeah? The question really is, can you read between the lines of your own thinking? You can um, create such a beautiful space to uh, traverse through the wildest of storms if you have that form of connection to heart during the storms. This is strengthened throughout time, and it can also happen instantly. That is the balance of the universe. There is measurement in chronological time, but there is also the fact, which is comparison is the thief of joy. You cannot compare without measurement. Do you see what I'm saying? So, point number two, why you can't give what you don't have. Okay, very simply, any human understands this. If I do not have $1 million, I cannot give you $1 million. But now, in your heart, if you do not have calmness, peace, presence, how can you show another human what life is all about? You can't. So, and all simultaneously, for you to be someone who externally makes a impression on others, right? Shows some form or way that it's not that I know or you know anything. It's more so, oh, this guy moves in a certain way. Can you, through unconscious communication, show others that you are an embodiment of what humanity needs? Because if you learn to do that, then your life will be sown in accordance in which it has been created. And it's tough because you want certainty in our thinking, in our me, in the I, who we refer to ourselves as. We want certainty. But the most certain truth of life is that it's only through getting comfortable with uncertainty that you can have a certain confidence in the moment. Because then you are no longer rigidly holding on to specific intentions, motives, desires, and you're learning to do what you did as a pure child, which was to move spontaneously. Now, the problem with spontaneity is that if all humans are spontaneous, then things can get a little bit wild. Just as if the child is shitting on the floor, right? You need to have the child use the bathroom or be potty trained, right? So you can't just shit on the floor at all the time. You actually never. You can't do that. Certain things are not acceptable. But if you get rid of all spontaneity, then the quote enters the chat. And that is that most humans are not buried until 75, but they are dead at 25. That means that their body is alive for much longer, but their spirit has been dwindled. The sparkle in the eye, the childlike nature and joy, it has all been diminished because humanity, in its certain disciplinary ways, has pushed the joy out of your heart. You cannot let for that happen. All at the same time, you can't go shitting on the floor. So, this is the essence of okay, how do I enjoy my life? It's really the question that my podcast revolves around is how do you enjoy your life? And you can't give what you don't have. So you're going to have to see. For my practical example, I noticed in my past, many of you are going to be able to resonate with this, but my parents never had financial abundance. They were always selling their time for money. Now, everyone has to go through that phase, at least in 2025, where we are as humanity. But holistically, in the future, there's going to be a time where humans don't have to work, where work is an optional thing. Now, there's beauty and value in work. There's also much suffering and pain in too much work. There's also beauty and joy in not working, and who would have guessed? There's much pain and suffering also in not working. So, what did I just say? I contradicted everything I just said, meaning that you need to be intuitively connected and aware enough to understand how to create the balance that your spirit is driving you to create. So, with all that being said, if you do not have financial abundance, well, you cannot share that. What does humanity need? Part of what we need is expansive resources to make this world not beautiful in a solely aesthetic sense, but beautiful, functional, efficient, and joyous, and full of leisure. We need a world of balance. How do you create that? The only way to do so is to have balance in your heart. As balance is shared from your heart to another, then the compounding universal laws kick into action for our consciousness. Einstein says that this problem cannot be solved at the same level of consciousness in which it was created. So let's move on to point number 3 and we'll tie this all together. What to do when you realize you've been teaching from your own trauma. Now, I even have a challenge with this, right? Because there are many things in my life that are not, ooh, who would have thought? Perfect, right? I currently am doing hardscaping, like I've shared with you. That means that I am literally selling my time for money. That is something that I do not see myself doing forever. But the point is that sometimes I notice this internal little jesting battle of there are things that you're going to have to do in life that you may not want to do. And for me, I'm twisting it, learning to enjoy the fact that I'm working hard, I'm learning new skills, and I'm able to share who I am with my coworkers. And in the big picture, maybe I need a little bit of what they have, and they need a little bit of what I have, right? So you got to get good at dancing through life rather than stopping through life. And if you've been sort of teaching from your trauma, what does this look like? I'll give you a very prime example that many of you will resonate with as you start or are on the intermediate phases of your journey. Now, as I say that, remember, comparison's the thief of joy. So when I use the word beginner or intermediate, it doesn't imply that I'm at the end of my journey. I just want to cover them. And so, when you're teaching from your trauma, you take a step back and you realize, okay, it's definitely not a problem if I have moments of friction that I notice and learn through noticing, right? Because then the patterns are not running me unconsciously. I am consciously, holistically aware of my patterns. It's only when you are aware of those patterns that you can let go of teaching from your trauma, because as you're teaching, you're going to have moments of friction. It doesn't mean that your entire teaching is friction, but you have moments. So as you're teaching, you have to use that awareness in the moment to chip away, right? The essence of God is not in more. It is much clearer communicated in the form of how a statue is created. You have the rock and you chip away the pieces of the rock to leave the beautiful statue. Same thing goes for you in any form of a teacher or a leader. If you have authority at work, that means that you're going to be leading others. There are going to be those friction moments. You get good. You let go of your friction as you teach. You chip away and you chip away. Inevitably, you're left with less and less trauma. Then you are shining stronger in radiance. That compounds as well. The people who are ready for the light will find you. You have to have faith. You have to trust. And you cannot make your life all about one thing. Your life has to be versatile. You need to love many things. You need to care for many things. And you need to have excitement in many different forms, right? So, practically, I love to end with a little practicality. You do unto others as you would like done to yourself. That means do not think thoughts of others that you would not like others thinking of you. Do not use a tone of voice to others that you would not enjoy being spoken to in. Use words that you would like other people to speak to you with. Um, Take care of your body in a manner where if someone else had control of your body, you would be appreciative that they were reciprocating that same form of action. This joy, this love, this expansion, this bringing truth into the world cannot be a selfish endeavor. But all simultaneously, you use yourself to do the work. You use your identity, your awareness of your thoughts. You are not just the sky, you are not just the clouds, you are both the sky and the clouds. Can you observe the clouds passing by and remember that the sun will shine once again? That there will be certain days where you are the thunderstorm. Can you learn to enjoy all the weather, all the seasons? That's the question. If you enjoyed this, I'll say one thing. Well, nope, I'll say a few things. First thing, check the link in the description. I've been working super hard on this. Now, you know the podcast, this message is about purity and truth. Part of getting to the point where you can hear and see is having a temple which is healthy and at least somewhat harmonious. So part of that is not being 500 pounds and obese and consuming terrible food and not exercising. All to tie this together, the Greek God Physique Blueprint, it is now out. Certain things are still being finalized, but it is a product which I am more than proud. Proud would be an understatement. I am wholly grateful that this thing is created. If you want to make that transformation, we're specifically speaking to smart or successful skinny fat men in between the ages of 28 to 50, really. You can purchase it and benefit if you do not fit that specific avatar. But that is whom this PDF, this blueprint is for. If you would like to get into amazing shape, check that out down below. Besides that, just share this with one friend, one family member, one coworker, one person who you feel in your heart would benefit from hearing these words. Thank you so much for listening. Let's go.